You know, we always talk about these big historical moments, right? And we focus on all the famous names and places. But I always wonder about those other places. The ones that maybe don't make it into the textbooks quite as often, but were still super important.
It's like the unsung heroes of history, right? The ones working behind the scenes to really make things happen.
Exactly. And that's actually kind of what we're looking at today. We're going to do a deep dive into Seb'aa-Enderta. It's a region in northern Ethiopia, and we're going off the source, The Forgotten History of Seb'aa-Enderta, Ethiopia's Political Legacy.
Oh yeah, Enderta. Interesting choice.
So that's kind of the point, right? We're trying to figure out why this place is so crucial to Ethiopian history, even though you don't always hear about it. Like, what's the big deal with Enderta? Why should we care?
Well, to start, you got to think about geography. I mean, Enderta wasn't just some random spot on the map. It was strategically vital.
Okay, so like good real estate. Was it about location?
Basically, yeah. I mean, it controlled some really important trade routes, and that meant it had some serious military clout. So when you're talking about the medieval and early modern periods in Ethiopia, Enderta was right in the thick of things.
So were they like the kingmakers? Always on the side of whoever was in power?
Not always. That's what makes it so interesting. Sometimes they were the biggest supporters of the rulers, helping them consolidate power. But then other times, they were the main challengers pushing back against the central authority.
Wow. So they were kind of a wild card?
You could say that. They were powerful enough that no one could just ignore them. And that meant they were a major factor in how things played out.
And the article mentions how they were key during the Zemene Mesafint. That was like the era of the princes, right? When things got super messy in Ethiopia.
Yeah, exactly. That's where Enderta's regional strength really came into play.
How so?
Well, with the central government weakening, all these different regions started vying for power. And Enderta, they were right there in the mix. The rulers of Enderta, they weren't just sitting back and watching. They were major players in how the whole empire fragmented and then the struggles to try and put back together.
They were shaping events, not just reacting to them.
Absolutely. And their influence didn't just disappear after that either. I mean, the article talks about how they resisted colonial ambitions later on, and even how they're part of Ethiopia's modern federal structure today.
Wow, so their legacy really has continued.
Big time. And that's what makes it kind of crazy that they're not more well known, right? You'd think a region with that kind of track record would be in all the history books.
So why do you think that is?
I think sometimes we get so caught up in the big picture, you know, the capitals, the dynasties, and those are important, don't get me wrong. But sometimes we lose sight of all the other forces at play.
Yeah, and it sounds like Enderta is a perfect example of that.
Definitely. If you want to really understand Ethiopia, you got to understand Enderta. It gives you a much more complete picture of how the country developed.
So basically what we've learned today is that Seb'aa-Enderta might be a forgotten name for some, but they were a huge force in Ethiopian history.
Politically, militarily, they were shaping things for centuries.
And it makes you think, right, if a place as influential as Enderta can kind of fade into the background, what else are we missing? Like, what other regions out there have these huge stories that we just haven't heard yet?
Makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Definitely something to think about.